She knew that at this time of year the water current was strong, perhaps stronger than she could swim. Foolhardy as her mother was though, she stood here at the edge of the water, waves beckoning her to dive in. On the horizon, verdant bottle green trees and thriving undergrowth further promised a warm welcome. Turning back and now clambering pillars of rock for a better view, just stretching her neck a little further to catch a glimpse. And yes, there it was. Surrounded entirely by smooth blue undulations, unaffected by the day-to-day struggle. Paradise, why did paradise have to be so far away? She only had small legs? Another gene to thank her mother for? Which she wasn't sure would support such an endeavor. Others had indeed made it to the island she wanted to reach, but they had been younger and more practiced in the art of island hopping. Doubt now contradicted Maya's belief, and as she felt a prickling sweat on her back she realized the day would soon be in full swing. Birds would carol enthusiastically as they sailed in the air above her, eyeing up a next meal. The humans would also be coming to the beach at midday to oh and ah at turtles like her just going about their daily business, and not to mention the worst part of it all. As the heat increased, so did the speed of the current. She had to act. No more than 3 tiny footprints had been left behind on silky sand before an almighty swoop. Maya thrust her head into her neck, withdrew her arms and legs into the shell, and prayed to Trident that she was hidden enough. She felt slightly dizzy as her shell rocked from side to side, receiving huge blows with deafening pecking noises echoing through her mind, bringing up the trauma of past pecking runs, which as usual preceded the memory of those who had not been quick enough in their cellular retreat. Just as the noises began to subside, her foot was nicked by the titanic beak of a pelican. Discomfort rushed to her foot, but she remained indifferent in her shelter. This was, as Maya knew well by now, a battle won through calm stoicism, eventually. Though who can say how much time passed? Maya came to. Very slowly, light erupted back into her world as a wrinkly head poked out from a tattered green shell. That was it. Like the spark igniting the campfire, which engulfs travelers and natives alike, or the switch that brings the neon pink cocktail tiki bar sign into stunning vibrancy. Pressing down, gently at first, on her wounded foot to check the damage, and, once she had decided it was not enough to keep her from reaching her promised land, Maya looked forward, and forward only, all the way to the shoreline. Reaching the shoreline now, she did not hesitate to slip between the waves. Swimming came fairly naturally to her, as she learnt to go with the current, and use those bursts of energy, instead of depleting one's own resources trying to fight back against it. A close friend had once said to her, "Go with the flow," which repeated in her mind now, "Go with the flow, relax." Maya allowed her eyes to close for a moment and feel the warmth, the safety of the current taking her closer and closer to the island. One question remained: what would she munch on first? Would she find a writhing earthworm? Oh, how she loved chewing down through the soft flesh and muscle. The earthy aftertaste was less than desirable, but the appeal was made up for her also in hunting one down to eat. Ah, she has completely forgot to think about her favorite snack of all. Maya knew, as she was told teasingly by a fellow nomad, that waterweeds were commonly found quivering by the shores of the island, which grew closer and closer with each passing second now. She had forgot all about the opening on her foot. Blissfully fantasizing about the feast which awaited, not long now, Maya no longer felt any pain. Nor did she sense any blood slowly trickle out of the gash, darkening the water ever so slightly, giving off pheromonic details of her exact location. These details were unfortunately picked up by the sensitive olfactory system of a nearby tiger shark. It had honestly been a long day. Swimming around in this same reef can sometimes be repetitive, even for a top predator such as a shark. Swimming around, looking intimidating, knowing they are loathed by beachgoers worldwide. The basking sharks of Cornwall had told him so. In fact, since 1975, it had been noticed among the shark community that the humans had suddenly become incredibly wary of their presence. This, as rumor had it, was down to the release of a certain film which portrayed them as incredibly dangerous, and then there was no coming back. All of this was playing on the tiger shark's mind when suddenly all thought was arrested. Any synaptic activity was suddenly stopped and replaced by only one idea. Blood, racing through the water, the source of the blood was located quicker than you could say faster, Maya. The shark is right behind you and about to open his almighty jaws to take a huge snap. Moments away from Maya. She used her entire wingspan and pushed through the water with immense force, enough to propel her momentarily away from the shark. However, it was not long before the shark was again aligned with Maya, who was exhausting all possible resources, frantically flapping and flailing about. The current is no friend to an animal trying to escape a predator. Surely this is the end. Another snap. This time the turtle is not so lucky. Would this island be worth losing the very end of her toe, which proved only to taunt more hunger out of the shark? With no time to contemplate this, her vision went completely dark, and she simply felt rushing all around her as hundreds of tiny bodies bolted over her, a school of fish, and she was tumbling through the air. No, the water upside down? Or was she the right way up? Any attempt to make sense of what was happening seemed futile. As was her tendency when things got out of control, she simply let go. The familiar phrase flowed through her mind, and it was in this state of peace, harmony and tranquility that little Maya found herself, spread eagle, lying on the shores of the island. She caught her breath. Looking around, there was no expense spared on this all-you-can-eat buffet of rich vegetation. Overcoming a slight paralysis? For there was simply too much choice. She ambled unhurriedly over to some fresh leaves and began to nibble slightly. As she enjoyed the watery crunch and soft texture, she glanced to her foot, deciding that it had been worth losing the end of a toe for.